In this video, I'm going to show you what's new in Copy Services Manager 6316. Here's a quick look at all the features we have. There's 10 new features. We'll go through those one by one. All right, the first one is pretty easy. What we added was in 6315, we actually added a change to the button for importing our certificates. So the GUI already had an import trust store button, and it would import for the GUI side of the house. What we did in 6315 is make it a lot easier for you, and if you imported through that button, it would combine the certs for all the ports, all the communication in and out of the server. So a lot easier to manage in 6315, but we needed a way to allow you to automate it as well. And so in 6316, we added the import certs command on the CSM CLI. That allows you to pass in the file and password and do the same thing as the button, as well as the CSM REST API call, the post system certificates, and both just do the same thing as that new button on the GUI. So hopefully that lets you automate it. You can grab your new cert in whatever interval you need to do it in your shop, and call these commands to update. All right, the next few actually have to do with our scheduled tasks. So we made a lot of improvements in scheduled tasks, and want to show you those. So the first one is viewing. So in the past, scheduled tasks are quite powerful. You can create tasks, create your own custom workflows. But if you wanted to view what you did at any point in time after you created it, you'd have to go into the wizard and go through all the panels, from the scheduling panels to the summary panel, all that. Well, now we've made it a little easier for you to go back and look at it. So if you hover over the scheduled task name, boom, you get a little tooltip pop-up that gives you just the list of actions. Nice quick view of what actions that task is going to run. Or if you want to see a little more, if you click that scheduled task name, it'll actually give you a pop-up, a bigger pop-up that gives you all the summary info. So actions, what to run on success, what to run on failure, the actual schedule, all that stuff. So hopefully these two options give you a way to look at the task a lot easier. All right, the next one has to do with being able to run a scheduled task from a specific step. So say you create a task that has multiple steps, and right in the middle, step 4 or step 3, it failed. And you're like, oh man, I messed that up. Well, now I have to go manually run step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, all through manual commands. Or I build a separate task that does 4 through 7. Either way, it's kind of tedious. So what we did was allow you now to manually issue the run task now from a specified step. So you can click that, choose the step you want to run it from, and CSM will start at that step and complete the rest of the actions in that task. You can't schedule it from a certain step yet, but this gives you that opportunity to redrive the script or the scheduled task without having to start all over. All right, the next one is one we've been asked for a while, is that's being able to cancel a running task. So once the task starts running, you actually have to wait for it to stop in the past. It either fail or kept going, whatever. Well, now you'll be able to issue the cancel task command to any task that's in a running state, and we will cancel it. Now, only one caveat here is we do have to wait for the currently running action to complete. So if it's an action that's running or doing a command per se, for example, that command will complete, but then the next action won't run after, because you canceled it. It'll cancel at that point. So hopefully this gives you, in those unique cases where you might need this, the ability to cancel out the task. All right, the next one is the last scheduled task one I'm going to cover, but it's a really good one. In the past, in the other previous releases, if you started running a task, you really didn't know where it was at in the process of running. You could look at the console messages and find the messages that tell you what, but if other messages are popping out, it's very difficult to see. So now when you start a task, if you click on the scheduled task name, you'll get that pop-up I talked about earlier, that little window. But as part of that, you'll actually see the running actions will have the little running icon. If it completes successfully, you'll get a little check mark. Or if it fails, like in that bottom picture, you'll get the big red X. So you can actually see it running and moving as it goes, steps through each of the actions within that scheduled task now. In addition, that status will stay there at least until the next time the task is run or the server is restarted. We don't persist it in terms of a server reboot, but up until the next run, if you haven't rebooted the server, you'll be able to go back and say, well, oh, okay, I saw that's failed at step 7, or say it failed in the middle of the night, and you come back in the morning, you'll be able to pop this up and say, oh, failed at step 7. It's a lot easier to see than to try to wade through the console messages. All right, the next one has to deal with email notifications. So there's a real quick one. In the past, when we threw an email notification, we only spit out in the subject line the message ID. In the body, the full message would appear, but the subject was just that simple one string message ID. Well, we had a request from a customer that wanted some more information so that they can actually filter off these messages. And so what we did is we added in 6.16 every email alert in the subject will consist of the message ID, a timestamp, the server name, the alert category, and a list of the message inserts. So if the message contained a certain session name, etc., you'd be able to pull that out of the subject. And if this just allows for greater filterability, so you can, in your email server, set up rules to send it one place or store it one place, do different actions based off of what's in the subject. So hopefully this helps. All right, time-locked expirations. So this is for DS8000 safeguarded copy. For DS8000 safeguarded copy, when we came out with this solution years ago, the way we did expirations is, you specified a retention time within the properties of the session, but that retention time was always based off the last successful backup. So if you stop taking backups, your backups would pretty much stay constant, because we're not going to expire anything, because it really needs that new backup to start building, creating the expiration that starts expiring older backups. And we went with this solution because it kind of gives you that consistent number of backups always, right? So you'll always have that number of backups, even if you happen to stop creating backups for whatever reason. Well, we had customers since then kind of say, well, we like that, but there's some caveats to it. So if, you may keep the same number of backups, but if we stop creating backups and those backups get older and older, they're not very useful anyway, because they're old backups. What we really rather want is more of a time-based expiration where those backups are completely locked. So in this release, we're allowing you to do that. So in the settings, advanced tools, there's a button there called Enable Time-Locked Expirations. And if you click it, you will put the server into a mode that will base retention off of time instead of the last backup taken. Now, I will warn you, once you enable this, you cannot turn it off. And that's because it's really a full-on lockdown mode where even if you had dual control enabled, you can't expire a backup or delete a backup until after it's older than the retention time set for the session. So it's really locking in that time, ensuring that time is set, and then expiring it, and only allowing expirations or deletions after that. Now, I should warn you, if a volume's backup capacity has been exceeded, it may stop being able to take backups, and you might not be able to take more backups until after those older backups have expired that allow you to finally create backups again. So there are some caveats to this mode. Be very careful, but it does give you a more true, immutable backup in a sense. Okay, along with that safeguarded copy lockdown mode, though, it comes with a couple of neat features. First is, I'll actually talk two different commands, but first I'll actually talk about this bottom one first, the disable expiration. So what this is it basically tells the session to not do any more expires. And you need this in the case of, say, an attack where because you're in time-locked mode, you may not want to all of a sudden lose backups because you're trying to analyze if there really was an attack. So you can issue the disable expiration, say on a threat detected. So if you get threat detection event, disable the expiration, server stops expiring stuff, and after that, you can do your analysis without worrying about backups falling off the back. When you're ready, you can enable expiration and things will expire. Say it wasn't an attack after all, great. Enable expiration, start taking backups again, and you're off to the races. The top one is a little more unique. It's called hold and preserve backups. And when you issue this, it does the disable the expiration just like the first command I talked about, but it also prevents new backups from being performed. So it kind of, if you had a scheduled task that was automatically creating backups, it would give warnings when it issued the backup saying, oh, we can't create new backups, you're in a hold mode. So this can be used for not only a potential attack situation, but it's also could be used for, say, if you want to manage your backups only during your business hours. So if you didn't want to do backups during the weekends or holidays and all that stuff, you can issue this command, and what it does is the server itself will actually track while it's in this hold mode, so that when you do the release command at the end and release the backups again, say on Monday morning, all backups that are in the queue there will have their retention extended based off the duration that hold was in place. So in other words, if you resumed everything on Monday morning, all the backups on Friday will still stay on the system, even though you may have your retention set to only a day. They'll all stay on the system until Tuesday, when they will finally be older than the time that passed for the retention. So it's a very useful feature potentially if you did enable lockdown mode. All right, the last set of features I'm going to talk about are all Flash systems related. So let's talk about some snapshot and PBR support enhancements. First, all volume groups will now have automatically generated snapshot sessions. So we used to do this with Safeguarded Copy 1.0, but because the hardware had a policy. Well, when Snapshot came along, the policy moved off of the hardware for external management, and so we didn't automatically create those sessions. We had customers create them. But as more and more scenarios came into play, we said, you know what, we might as well just create them. So we will now automatically, if we find a volume group out there, we will automatically create the snapshot session. We will not create the scheduled task because we don't know the policy. We don't have that policy out there, but the snapshot session will be there so that you can just create the scheduled task and you're off and running. The same thing applies actually if you create a thin clone. So before, when you created a thin clone off of a snapshot in CSM, we had a little tab there that showed the thin clones, but we didn't actually create a session. We figured that was more use for, hey, creating, doing validation testing or doing something like that. You didn't really need to manage stuff off of it. But as time gone by, there's customers that use those thin clone volume groups to replicate to another site for 3-site solutions, or they create snapshots off those thin clones, all kinds of use cases. And so what we decided to do is, if you take a thin clone, we will create that snapshot session based off that automatically now as well. All right, so and then the last thing I'm going to talk about here is the async PBR improvement. So we already, in the past, once we added async PBR, we created snapshot sessions automatically for you based off of each of the storage systems and across the volume groups that are made up the replication. But we had the site for the snapshot sessions just set to the default site 1. Well, that could be confusing if you're looking at this async solution down here that I'm showing you. It's going across box 2001 and 2002. Yeah, the boxes are labeled there, but if I'm just looking at the snapshot sessions, I might accidentally choose the wrong snapshot session. So now we will actually tie and set the label to the same thing as the async PBR. So if you were to drill into that 2001 session, async PBR session, you'll see that the 2002 box is labeled site 2, 2001 is labeled site 1, and so the snapshot session will get that label as well, and lo and behold, you have a more consistent view and easier to manage, even if you used custom site names. All right, the next one I'm talking about is the support for restore from a thin clone snapshot. So FlashSystem's added the ability to not only create snapshots off your thin clones, but you can go to the original session, snapshot session, volume group, sorry, and restore that volume group and set of volumes from the snapshots of a thin clone. So we allow that in CSM now. You can see the thin clone. You can see that we've labeled a little icon next to each of the thin clone. But if you click on the source volume group, you can jump back to that source snapshot session for that volume group and click the command restore from thin clone, which will allow you to pick the thin clone session you want, pick the snapshot you want, and restore those volumes to the data that's in that thin clone snapshot. Complex scenario, but hopefully you understand it, and we provide that now in CSM. And the last one I'm most excited about, we added it in processing for FlashCore module threat detection. So what can we do for you for threat detection events on flash systems? Well, CSM is now monitoring the event queue for the 4300 threat detection event. So if you've set up your flash systems to receive events from the storage insights when it processes threat detection, that 4300 event will show up on your event queue. CSM will see it, and we can do two things for you. The first is we actually have a new threat detection alert category. So you can set up any email alerts to any users based off of whether a threat detection alert is hit. The second one, far more exciting, there's a new option on each scheduled task called Run Task on Threat Detection Event. If you select that, you can then choose on the next panel the set of sessions you want to monitor, and if any of those sessions hit a threat detection event, this scheduled task that you set will automatically run. So what can you do with this? You can do, who knows, sky's the limit. So if you have a threat detection off a given session or set of volumes, in flash systems, we will see that, run this task, and this example below, you can see that we issued a new snapshot, took a quick snapshot right away, but also we worked with the IBM side of the house, and they set up a script on their system, on the CSM system that went and called and issued a alert, which they ended up running successfully and saw it, and so they on their side, on the IBM side, can then start doing in the toolkit some automation themselves based off a threat detection. And it was all crazy fast when we tested this. So thank you for the threat detections from the flash systems, but now you can combine it all, create an automated solution all within CSM. You don't need to have a separate seam or SOAR. You don't have to have any of that outside of us. You can build it all within the scheduled task of CSM itself. In addition, I should also note that the flash systems did add, it does mark when any snapshot after the threat detection event occurs. It does mark them as potentially corrupt because of the threat detection. So potential threat detection, it says. And CSM will show that now. So we have a table that shows that. And they will also extend the snapshot right before the threat detection, extend its expiration. So we will show the new extended time as well. So all that is handled in 6.3.15. You can see that as well. So, okay, with that, please, hope you saw that a lot of these were actually ideas based from you, the customer. So please open your RFE, open your ideas. We're always looking at them, always looking at the votes, and appreciate your time. Thanks for watching the video.